1. Introduction. Ratan Tata, the architect of modern Indian business. In the dynamic and evolving landscape of Indian industry, very few individuals have left as profound and transformative an impact as Ratan Tata. In Ratan Tata, the authorized biography, author Thomas Mathew, a retired bureaucrat and close observer of Indian corporate affairs, takes readers through the extraordinary life and legacy of a man who reshaped not only the Tata Group, but also the face of Indian capitalism. This biography is not just a corporate success story, it is a deeply human narrative of a man born into privilege but marked by discipline, of a leader who navigated through resistance, skepticism, and even hostility to emerge as one of India's most respected business figures. The book explores Ratan Tata's journey from being perceived as a soft-spoken, reluctant heir to the eventual transformation into a visionary industrialist whose business decisions would ripple across global markets. A legacy beyond numbers. Under Ratan Tata's stewardship, the Tata Group expanded from a collection of disparate, sometimes struggling companies into a global conglomerate with a presence in over 100 countries. The numbers are impressive, revenues growing from $6 billion to over $100 billion during his tenure. But Mathew's biography invites readers to look beyond balance sheets and stock prices. The book emphasizes Tata's values: integrity, humility, innovation, and a deep-seated belief in inclusive growth. Unlike many modern-day business leaders, Tata is not obsessed with personal wealth. He owns no shares in Tata Sons, the group's holding company. His wealth lies in influence, legacy, and the ability to inspire generations of entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and changemakers. The biography underscores how his belief in ethical leadership became the cornerstone of the group's global expansion. The author's lens. Thomas Mathew writes with the sensitivity of someone who not only respects his subject, but also understands the inner workings of corporate India. He had unprecedented access to Ratan Tata, which lends authenticity and intimacy to the narrative. Mathew balances objective reporting with nuanced storytelling, drawing from a wealth of interviews, speeches, internal documents, and first-hand accounts. One of the biography's most compelling features is how it peels back layers of Ratan Tata's public persona. Behind the stoic, measured businessman is a man with deep emotional intelligence, someone who took failures personally, loved dogs fiercely, and maintained an unusual combination of introversion and fierce loyalty. Readers are introduced to the man who rarely made his personal life public, including glimpses of near marriages, the loss of loved ones, and his enduring solitude. Setting the stage, the biography starts not in a boardroom, but in a moment of rejection. A young Ratan, freshly graduated from Cornell, returns to India and proposes ambitious changes at Nelco, a struggling Tata electronics company. He is met with resistance. Executives ignore him, elders question his judgment, and some even suggest he isn't ready for the responsibilities of leadership. This rejection would become a recurring theme in his early years, not because he lacked vision, but because he threatened the status quo. This sets the tone for the rest of the book. The story of a man who would never quite fit the mold but would go on to redefine it. Not just a Tata story. While the biography is centered around Ratan Tata, it also serves as an incisive commentary on the evolution of Indian business post-liberalization. Tata's story is intertwined with India's journey, from the socialist controls of the 70s and 80s, through economic reforms in the 90s, to the country's rise as a global economic force. His decisions, like acquiring Tetley or launching the Nano, were as much about repositioning Tata as they were about asserting India's presence on the world stage. Mathew does not shy away from the challenges either. He covers controversies, internal resistance, legal battles, and the often complex dynamics between Tata Sons, individual group companies, and the powerful Tata Trusts. The biography also details the much-publicized fallout between Ratan Tata and his chosen successor, Cyrus Mistry, providing a fair and balanced account without sensationalism. Why this biography matters. The importance of this biography lies in its timing and honesty. As India navigates the 21st century with a new crop of tech-driven entrepreneurs and venture capital-led startups, the story of Ratan Tata reminds us of the value of legacy, consistency, and purpose. It is a leadership playbook rooted in values, long-term vision, and a steadfast belief in doing the right thing, even when it's not the easy thing. Whether you are a business student, an aspiring entrepreneur, a historian, or just someone fascinated by human stories of transformation, Ratan Tata by Thomas Mathew offers something profound. It captures the essence of a man who, despite immense power and prestige, chose simplicity and service over spectacle and self-glorification. Two, early life and education born into legacy, not entitlement. Ratan Tata was born on December 28, 1937, into one of India's most illustrious families, the Tata family. He was born in Bombay, now Mumbai, a city that was rapidly becoming a commercial hub. His birth into the Tata lineage carried an implicit weight of legacy. Yet as the biography underscores, Ratan's childhood was not the kind of privileged, opulent experience often associated with industrialist dynasties. Instead, it was a life marked by emotional challenges, personal growth, and quiet resilience. His parents, Naval and Suni Tata, separated when Ratan was just 10 years old. This was an unusual occurrence at the time and caused significant social and emotional ripples. Following the divorce, both Ratan and his younger brother Jimmy were raised by their grandmother, Lady Navabai Tata. This transition had a profound impact on Ratan's upbringing. From an early age, he learned to internalize emotions and develop a quiet fortitude, traits that would later define his leadership style. Though born into the Tata family, Ratan wasn't J.R.D. Tata's direct descendant. He was the adopted son of Naval Tata, who himself was adopted into the family by Ratanji Tata and his wife. This made Ratan a descendant of the Tata name by adoption rather than bloodline, which became both a point of pride and a subtle source of insecurity during his early years in the Tata Group. While no one doubted his lineage, Ratan often felt he had to prove himself worthy of carrying forward the family legacy. A childhood shaped by solitude and strength. Growing up under the strict and loving supervision of Lady Navabai, Ratan developed a strong moral compass. His grandmother was deeply rooted in Parsi traditions and philanthropic values, and she instilled in him a sense of service and responsibility from a young age. She emphasized humility and respect, even though he came from a family known for power and privilege. These values would stay with Ratan for the rest of his life. He was not a rebellious child, but he was observant, thoughtful, and unusually introspective. His early experiences, particularly the trauma of his parents' separation and being raised by a single grandmother, gave him a sense of empathy and independence. He did not seek the limelight, even as a boy. He preferred the company of books, machines, and animals over parties or public appearances. One defining passion that began in childhood was his love for dogs. This was not a fleeting interest, but a lifelong bond that revealed his deeply emotional and caring nature. While many saw him as a reserved or even aloof figure, those close to him knew of his affection for animals, especially strays and abandoned pets. His compassion was always quiet, often unnoticed, but deeply genuine. Early education, foundations of thought. Ratan attended Campion School in Mumbai for his early education and later studied at Cathedral and John Connon School, one of the city's most prestigious institutions. These formative years were spent in the bustling city of Bombay, which gave him an early window into the contrasts of India, from wealth to poverty, from industry to tradition. Though academically bright, Ratan was not a child prodigy. What stood out instead was his methodical thinking and creative curiosity. He had a particular interest in mechanics, engineering, and architecture, which later influenced many of his major business decisions, especially in product innovation, like the Tata Nano and Tata Indica. He wasn't known to be a talkative or flamboyant student. Instead, he listened more than he spoke. Teachers and peers often described him as sincere, well-mannered, and disciplined. He was the type of student who commanded respect through presence rather than performance. Cornell University, the budding of a global mind. After finishing his schooling in India, Ratan Tata moved to the United States for higher education. He enrolled at Cornell University, originally choosing to pursue mechanical engineering. However, after a year, he made the bold decision to switch to architecture, a choice that puzzled many, but was ultimately supported by his mentor and professor, Dean Harlan D. Ellingson. This switch signaled something important about Ratan. He was not afraid to follow his intuition, even when it went against conventional expectations. His time at Cornell was transformative. He was away from the watchful eyes of Indian society and could finally explore his individuality. He immersed himself in design, structure, and the aesthetics of space, a passion that would later influence the design philosophy of Tata's products, from hotels to cars. During his time at Cornell, Ratan also worked summer jobs, including one at an architecture firm in Los Angeles, which gave him real-world exposure to discipline, deadlines, and the rhythm of a working life. This hands-on experience taught him the value of hard work and humility. He wasn't handed everything on a silver platter, even in America. He was determined to earn his credentials on merit. Ratan graduated from Cornell in 1962 with a degree in architecture and structural engineering. He later returned to pursue a management course at Harvard Business School in 1975, a program specially designed for senior executives. Harvard broadened his understanding of global economics, organizational behavior, and leadership strategies. It was here that he began to see business not merely as profit-making, but as a tool for societal transformation. Influence of mentors and role models. Several key figures shaped Ratan Tata's worldview. First and foremost was Lady Navajbai Tata, his grandmother, who gave him both affection and discipline. She believed in duty over comfort and service over status. Her philanthropy and grace were quiet but deeply influential. Another mentor was J.R.D. Tata, his predecessor and India's most iconic business leader at the time. While J.R.D. was initially distant, over time, he took Ratan under his wing. J.R.D.'s love for aviation, technology, and innovation deeply influenced Ratan's own priorities. More importantly, J.R.D.'s insistence on ethical leadership and his resistance to political interference would become a model that Ratan would emulate, especially during tough times like the Singer crisis or the Cyrus mystery fallout. There were others too, professors at Cornell who encouraged him to think independently, colleagues in America who showed him the value of team dynamics, and even unnamed workers in Tata factories who demonstrated the strength of dignity and hard work. For Ratan, mentorship did not always come from the top. He observed, learned, and adapted from every layer of society, a young man with an old soul. By the time Ratan Tata returned to India after his studies, he was a well-rounded young man in his mid-20s. He had the poise of someone older, the education of an elite, but the heart of someone deeply grounded. He wasn't loud or demanding. He didn't arrive with visions of grandeur. What he carried with him instead was a quiet conviction that he would one day make a difference, not just in business, but in the lives of ordinary people. And yet his return to India was not met with open arms or immediate responsibilities. In the chapters that follow, we see how Ratan had to fight for relevance, respect, and recognition within his own family empire, often starting from the very bottom. But what stands out in this phase of life is that the foundations had been laid. The values instilled by Lady Navajbai, the skills honed at Cornell and Harvard, And the quiet strength born from childhood adversity would soon shape one of India's most iconic corporate leaders. Third entry into the Tata Group. Humble beginnings in a towering empire. In 1962, when Ratan Tata returned to India after graduating from Cornell University, he was not welcomed into the Tata Group as a scion of a corporate dynasty with a red carpet. Instead, he was quietly assigned a modest role at Tata Steel, working on the shop floor in Jamshedpur. His job? Shoveling limestone and handling machinery in a dusty hot steel plant. It was not a desk job, not a management trainee program, but a deliberate decision to understand the ground realities of business from the bottom up. This experience turned out to be foundational. Ratan would later reflect that his time in Jamshedpur taught him more about the value of labor, teamwork, and humility than any Ivy League education ever could. It was in the furnaces of the steel plant that he began forging not just steel, but the core of his leadership style. Patient, process-driven, and always grounded in reality. Yet despite the dignity of labor, his entry into the Tata Group was far from smooth. The organization was vast, hierarchical, and controlled by strong individual fiefdoms. Each group company had its own culture, leadership, and sense of autonomy. Ratan, a young man with foreign education and no substantial track record, was seen by many as an outsider, even within his own empire. The Nelco Challenge, a test of grit. Ratan's first major challenge came when he was assigned to Nelco, National Radio and Electronics Company Limited, a struggling Tata company that made radios and communication equipment. At the time, Nelco was on the verge of collapse, bleeding money and unable to compete in a government-regulated market. Many senior executives thought the assignment to Nelco was a polite exile, a way to test and perhaps sideline the young Ratan without giving him real power. But he approached the job with seriousness and sincerity. He immersed himself in the business, spoke to engineers, studied market dynamics, and introduced a new sense of urgency into the company's lethargic culture. One of his first actions was to modernize the product line and streamline operations. He pushed for the creation of two-way radios, entered new markets like defense and commercial communications, and tried to shift Nelco's identity from a consumer electronics maker to a more technology-oriented enterprise. These were bold moves for the time, and for someone so young. Yet the challenges were immense. Ratan was not just fighting market conditions, but also entrenched bureaucracies within the company and the wider Tata Group. Resources were scarce, and every attempt at revival was met with internal skepticism. Eventually, despite some early signs of revival, Nelco was hit by a devastating labor strike, followed by the government's crackdown on the electronics sector. Ratan's efforts were largely undone, and the company slid back into losses. To outsiders, this was a failure. But to those paying close attention, it was clear. Ratan had vision, courage, and the ability to lead in crisis. He didn't quit. He didn't make excuses. He fought, and he learned. The Empress Mills experiment. Idealism meets reality. After Nelco, Ratan was assigned another challenge. Empress Mills, a textile unit based in Nagpur. This too was a legacy Tata company in decline, and its assignment to Ratan was interpreted by some insiders as yet another test, or perhaps a trap. Once again, Ratan threw himself into the task. He believed Empress Mills could be revived through modernization, better working conditions, and product innovation. He introduced airjet looms, revamped labor policies, and even designed a new line of fine-quality fabrics. His approach was holistic, not just focused on profits, but on the workers, processes, and culture of the mill. However, the roadblocks were familiar. Despite his efforts, support from Tata Sons was minimal. His proposal to invest 50 lakh rupees to modernize the mill, a small amount by group standards, was rejected. Senior figures saw Empress Mills as a lost cause, not worth reviving. Eventually, the mill closed down. For Ratan, this was more than a business failure. It was personal. He had believed in the potential of the workers, the factory, and the city of Nagpur. The lack of support from his own organization made him question the rigidity and short-term thinking of the larger Tata ecosystem. These setbacks, Nelco and Empress Mills, were publicly viewed as losses, but they taught Ratan lessons in resilience, systemic change, and leadership without authority. He was building something far more important than profits: credibility, a lone wolf in the Tata jungle. The Tata Group of the 1970s and 1980s was a sprawling federation of nearly 100 companies. Each company operated with its own board, leadership, and culture. The chairman of Tata Sons, J.R.D. Tata, was a visionary but laissez-faire leader. He allowed companies to function independently, often leading to duplication, inefficiency, and internal competition. In such a decentralized setup, Ratan Tata's push for integration and modernization was seen as intrusive. Many senior executives considered him naive, a young dreamer who didn't understand Indian markets, labor unions, or political realities. Ratan often found himself isolated in board meetings. His ideas were dismissed or ridiculed. At one point, a senior executive even told him bluntly, "You may be JRD's choice, but you'll never be ours." Despite this opposition, Ratan remained composed. He rarely confronted his critics directly. Instead, he let his work speak. He spent hours visiting factories, learning about operations, and building relationships with middle and junior level employees. Over time, he developed a silent coalition of supporters, people who admired his integrity, work ethic, and empathy, gaining the trust of J.R.D. Tata. Through these trials, J.R.D. Tata began to take notice. Though initially skeptical of Ratan's unorthodox methods and idealism, J.R.D. was impressed by his persistence, humility, and refusal to cut corners. He saw in Ratan a reflection of his own younger self, someone willing to challenge convention but never compromise on values. J.R.D. began mentoring Ratan more closely. He invited him to key meetings, discussed strategy, and slowly started preparing him for a larger role. While many in the group remained skeptical, J.R.D. had made up his mind. He believed Ratan was the best choice to lead the Tata Group into the 21st century. In 1991, after nearly 2 decades of proving himself, Ratan Tata was named the successor to J.R.D. Tata as the chairman of Tata Sons. It was a controversial decision. Several top executives threatened to resign. Some even accused J.R.D. of nepotism, but J.R.D. stood firm. He told the press, "Ratan has the vision, integrity, and commitment to lead the group. He will surprise you all." What this phase reveals about Ratan Tata. This chapter in Ratan Tata's life is one of the most telling. He was given failing companies, little support, and constant opposition. Yet he never lashed out, never sought revenge, and never played politics. Instead, he focused on what he could control: effort, learning, and character. He was mocked for his architectural training. He was doubted for being too Western. He was isolated in meetings, denied resources, and even blamed for failures not of his own making. But he endured. These early years in the Tata Group proved to be his crucible, a time when he was tested repeatedly. It was here that Ratan built the grit, patience, and strategic vision that would later help him transform the Tata Group into a global powerhouse. The scars from Nelco and Empress Mills never fully healed, but they hardened his resolve. He entered the Tata Group with humility. He stayed with perseverance, and ultimately he rose with dignity. 4. The chairman's journey begins, the mantle passes, a legacy in transition. The year 1991 marked a monumental shift in the history of the Tata Group and Indian industry. After more than 5 decades of iconic leadership, Jahangir Ratanji, Dadaboy, J.R.D. Tata, the venerable patriarch of the Tata Empire, stepped down as chairman of Tata Sons, the group's holding company. His chosen successor was Ratan Tata, a man who had quietly weathered storms within the group and earned J.R.D.'s confidence through resilience, not rhetoric. The announcement, however, came as a shock to many within the Tata establishment. Senior executives, media pundits, and even some members of the extended Tata family had anticipated a more seasoned business leader. perhaps someone who had steered one of the group's flagship companies like Tata Steel or Tata Motors. Ratan's rise was viewed with skepticism and even resentment by some veterans who felt overlooked or marginalized. But JRD was resolute. He saw in Ratan a kindred spirit, someone who valued integrity, innovation, and inclusivity. Though soft-spoken, Ratan had demonstrated vision and character during his time at Nelco and Empress Mills. Importantly, he also shared JRD's belief in business as a force for national development. The transition was not just about a change in leadership, it signaled a philosophical shift. JRD had built the group around autonomous businesses with minimal central interference. Ratan, however, believed that in an increasingly globalized world, cohesion, collaboration, and strategic direction were essential. And so began a journey that would redefine Indian industry. Resistance from within, the battle for authority. From the very beginning, Ratan Tata's authority as chairman was tested. Many of the powerful satraps, as they were often called, within the Tata Group viewed him as an unproven prince who had inherited the crown but lacked battlefield credentials. These executives had run their respective companies like independent kingdoms, with little coordination with Tata sons. Key personalities like Russi Modi, Tata Steel, Dhirab Patel, Tata Tea, Ajit Kirkar, Indian Hotels, and Nani Palkhiwala, Tata Sons board member, were seen as formidable and often resistant to centralized control. They questioned Ratan's legitimacy, criticized his lack of experience in profit-making enterprises, and doubted his leadership instincts. Ratan, however, remained composed. He didn't retaliate through boardroom politics or seek public confrontations. Instead, he began to quietly consolidate power, gradually reshaping the group from within. One of his first steps was to redefine the role of Tata Sons from a passive holding entity to an active guiding force. He insisted that key decisions, especially those involving cross-company strategy, innovation, and branding, needed to come under the group's umbrella. This wasn't easy. He had to win over boards, persuade chairmen, and endure sharp resistance. But over time, he demonstrated, not through declarations but decisions, that he had both the vision and the will to lead. Shaping a unified group identity. One of the earliest manifestations of Ratan's vision was his effort to unify the Tata brand. Until then, each Tata company had its own logo, branding, and public identity. There was no visual or strategic coherence between Tata Steel, Tata Motors, Tata Chemicals, or Tata Consultancy Services. Ratan believed this was a missed opportunity. The Tata name, he argued, stood for trust, ethics, and excellence, values that should be visibly aligned across every group company. Under his leadership, a single, unified Tata logo, the stylized T symbol, was introduced. This small but significant change began the process of transforming the Tata Group from a federation of companies into a singular global brand. It wasn't just about design or marketing. It was about creating a shared identity and encouraging collaboration across businesses that had previously operated in silos. Facing early business challenges. As Ratan began steering the ship, he also had to contend with real-world business headwinds. The early 1990s were a period of economic liberalization in India. With the dismantling of the license Raj, foreign companies were entering Indian markets with superior technology, marketing savvy, and deep pockets. Competition was fierce, and the Tata Group, for all its history and goodwill, was largely seen as conservative, slow, and outdated. Ratan understood that the old ways of doing business would not survive this new era. He pushed for product modernization, technological upgradation, and international quality standards. But implementing change in a conglomerate of over 90 companies, many of which were set in their ways, was no small task. His approach was threefold. 1. Professionalize management. Move away from dynastic and personality-driven leadership to performance-based systems. 2. Encourage innovation and risk-taking, especially in consumer-facing sectors like automobiles, hospitality, and software. Third, phase out non-performing businesses. Even if that meant emotional or historical costs, these changes often made him unpopular, especially among those accustomed to comfort zones. But Ratan knew that survival required transformation. The strategic bet on technology and software. One of Ratan's most prescient decisions in the early years was to focus on technology and services, particularly software. While manufacturing still dominated India's corporate imagination, Ratan believed that intellectual capital and global services would define the next wave of growth. He gave strategic importance to Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, then under the stewardship of F.C. Kohli and later S. Ramadorai. Under Ratan's guidance, TCS was not just scaled, it was transformed. He supported its expansion into global markets, insisted on world-class delivery systems, and laid the groundwork for its eventual IPO in 2004, a landmark moment in Indian corporate history. Similarly, Ratan backed Tata Interactive Systems, Tata Elxsi, and other tech ventures. Many of these bets were seen as too futuristic at the time, but decades later, they would emerge as core pillars of the Tata Group's global revenues. The vision for globalization. Perhaps the most defining feature of Ratan Tata's chairmanship was his commitment to globalization. In the early 1990s, very few Indian companies even considered international acquisitions. Most were still focused on navigating domestic regulations and bureaucracy. Ratan, however, had a much broader horizon. He believed that Indian companies, and Tata in particular, could compete globally, not just survive locally. His travels, education, and early exposure to Western markets gave him both the confidence and the clarity to take bold steps. But he knew that globalization wasn't just about buying foreign firms. It was about global standards, customer focus, branding, and innovation. These ideas became central to his strategy, and they would later materialize in historic acquisitions like Tetley, 2000, Chorus, 2007, Jaguar Land Rover, 2008, and more. Before those mega deals, however, Ratan began building the cultural and operational groundwork, encouraging group companies to think internationally, hire global talent, participate in overseas exhibitions, and invest in quality and design. This foresight would pay off handsomely in the years to come. Quiet leadership, firm resolve. Unlike many corporate leaders of the time, Ratan Tata was not a showman. He avoided flashy public statements, rarely gave interviews, and preferred to let the work speak for itself. This quiet style was often mistaken for weakness, but those who worked closely with him knew that he was anything but indecisive. He could be gentle in conversation, but when it came to principles or long-term vision, he was unshakable. Once he had made up his mind, he would not be easily swayed. His moral clarity and consistency were often the only compass in turbulent times. Personal integrity as corporate compass. Through all the changes, challenges, and confrontations, one thing never changed: Ratan Tata's unwavering commitment to ethics. He refused to compromise on transparency, honesty, and fair play, even when competitors resorted to shortcuts or political maneuvering. Whether it was refusing to pay bribes for licenses, rejecting political pressure during acquisitions, or insisting on fair labor practices, Ratan modeled what it meant to lead with integrity in a corrupt environment. These values, inherited from his family and honed through personal struggle, gave him the credibility and trust that no marketing campaign could buy. Laying the foundation for transformation. By the late 1990s, it became clear that Ratan Tata was no longer just JRD's successor. He was emerging as a transformative leader in his own right. His early tenure may have been marked by resistance and setbacks, but his vision, patience, and quiet strength had begun reshaping the Tata Group. He had centralized strategic decision-making without destroying company-level autonomy. He had unified the Tata brand while respecting diverse identities. He had modernized systems without eroding legacy values. Most importantly, he had started building a Tata Group that was future-ready. Leaner, smarter, and increasingly global. 5. Transforming the Tata Group, rising to the moment, the era of big change. When Ratan Tata assumed the chairmanship in 1991, The Tata Group was a vast, decentralized federation. Over 90 companies operating independently, often competitively, with little strategic alignment. For all its legacy and respect, the group lacked synergy and a shared vision. It resembled a loose confederation of kingdoms rather than a coordinated business empire. Ratan Tata believed this model was unsustainable in the age of globalization. The need for focus, scale, and strategic alignment was more pressing than ever. If the Tata Group was to grow beyond India and thrive in fiercely competitive global markets, it had to transform. This was not merely about rebranding or structural tweaks. What Ratan set in motion over the next 2 decades was one of the most audacious transformations in Indian corporate history, turning a venerable but fragmented business house into a globally respected conglomerate. Strategic consolidation, from fragmentation to focus. Ratan's first major initiative was to consolidate overlapping businesses and phase out non-core operations. He believed that the group should focus on a few strategic areas: automobiles, steel, power, IT, consumer goods, and hospitality, and exit industries where it lacked competitive edge or strategic interest. This wasn't easy. Many of these companies had deep emotional and historical value within the Tata legacy. But Ratan was clear: sentiment should not stand in the way of strategic clarity. Businesses that were unprofitable, redundant, or not aligned with long-term goals were either merged, restructured, or divested. For example, several textile units and manufacturing subsidiaries were shut down or sold off. Companies like Tata Finance, which faced governance issues, were restructured or phased out. Overlapping operations in chemicals and engineering were rationalized. He also encouraged mergers between group companies to achieve economies of scale and operational efficiency. This included the merger of Tata Power with Tata Hydroelectric, the alignment of consumer-facing brands under Tata Consumer Products, and internal collaborations between Tata Motors and Tata Technologies. The goal was to shift the group from being a sprawling horizontal empire to a vertically integrated powerhouse, where businesses complemented and strengthened each other. Tata Sons is the strategic nucleus. Historically, Tata Sons, the holding company of the group, played a passive role, more as a trustee and financier than an active coordinator. Ratan Tata saw the need to transform Tata Sons into the central nervous system of the entire group. He revamped its structure and role in several ways. 1. Empowered it as a strategic think tank. Tata Sons began coordinating group-wide innovation, branding, HR strategy, and international expansion. 2. Tightened control through equity. Over time, Tata Sons increased its stake in group companies, giving it more say in strategic decisions. 3. Established formal policies. Ratan introduced governance norms and reporting standards that ensured group-wide compliance, efficiency, and ethical integrity. Tata Sons also became a platform for funding high-risk, high-reward ventures like Tata Nano and Tata Housing, which needed long-term incubation before becoming profitable. This transformation allowed the Tata Group to act not just as individual companies, but as a coordinated, agile entity, able to respond to global opportunities and crises in unison. The Tetley acquisition, 2000, the first big leap. In 2000, Ratan Tata stunned the business world by announcing that Tata Tea, now Tata Consumer Products, had acquired Tetley, the iconic British tea brand, for £271 million, the largest overseas acquisition by an Indian company at that time. Tetley was 4 times the size of Tata Tea, and the deal was entirely leveraged, meaning it was financed through loans secured on Tetley's own assets and future earnings. Critics were quick to raise red flags. Many predicted it would be a financial disaster. Why would a relatively small Indian firm take on a debt-heavy deal to buy a company in the UK, the birthplace of tea drinking culture? But Ratan saw what others didn't. Global brand recognition. Tetley had presence in over 40 countries. Strong distribution networks in Europe and North America. An opportunity to move up the value chain, from selling loose tea in India to branded packaged products globally. The deal paid off handsomely. Within a few years, Tetley turned profitable under Tata's ownership. It became the foundation for Tata Consumer Products' global portfolio, which would later include Himalayan Water, 8 O'Clock Coffee, US, and others. Tetley wasn't just a smart acquisition, it was a symbolic one. It signaled that Indian companies could no longer be dismissed as local players. Ratan had placed Tata Tea and India, Vietnam, on the global M&A map. The Chorus deal, 2007, steel meets scale. The next audacious leap came in 2007, when Tata Steel, under Ratan's guidance, acquired Chorus Group, a British-Dutch steelmaker, for $12.1 billion, one of the largest acquisitions ever made by an Indian company. Chorus was 3 times bigger than Tata Steel at the time. It gave the company access to high-end European markets, advanced steel technologies, a global presence in automotive, construction, and packaging sectors. The deal marked Tata Steel's evolution from a domestic player to a top 10 global steel producer. However, the Chorus acquisition came with immense challenges. The global financial crisis hit shortly after the acquisition, shrinking demand and squeezing margins. Labor issues in the UK, volatile commodity prices, and environmental regulations added pressure. Despite these headwinds, Tata remained committed. The company launched restructuring programs, modernized plants, and worked with European governments to navigate crises. While Chorus strained Tata Steel's finances for several years, it ultimately helped transform the company into a global force with diversified revenue streams. The acquisition reflected Ratan's belief that scale, not just cost efficiency, was the future of steel, and that Indian companies had the right to compete in that arena. Jaguar Land Rover, Juga Hundrada, betting on British icons. If Tetley and Chorus were bold, then Jaguar Land Rover, JLR, was sheer genius. In 2008, at the height of the global recession, Tata Motors acquired Jaguar and Land Rover from Ford for $2.3 billion. Both iconic brands were seen as struggling, outdated, and financially bleeding. Ford was desperate to offload them. The Indian media questioned the timing. International analysts questioned Tata Motors' capability. Critics argued the brands were too niche, too luxury, and too British to succeed under Indian ownership. But Ratan had a different lens. He saw massive brand equity in emerging markets like China and India, a legacy of innovation in design and engineering, the potential to position Tata Motors as a serious global player. Crucially, Ratan resisted the urge to interfere with JLR's management. He allowed its British leadership to retain creative control while supporting investments in new models and technologies. This move preserved the brand's identity while injecting them with much-needed agility and vision. Within 5 years, JLR went from a loss-making acquisition to a profit-generating juggernaut, launching successful models like the Range Rover Evoque, Jaguar XF, and the all-electric I-Pace. Tata Motors' global revenues and prestige soared. The JLR deal became a case study in successful cross-border M&A and a defining moment in Ratan Tata's legacy. Cultural transformation from cautious to courageous. Beyond financial engineering and business strategy, Ratan Tata also ushered in a cultural shift within the Tata Group. Traditionally, Tata companies had been known for their caution and conservatism. Big risks were often avoided in favor of incremental gains. Ratan disrupted this mindset. He encouraged boldness, not recklessness, and inspired executives to think like entrepreneurs, not just custodians. He invested heavily in research and development, design thinking, talent development, and global recruitment. He launched the Tata Business Excellence Model, TBM, to instill global best practices and foster a performance-driven culture. This cultural transformation was crucial for the Tata Group to compete in volatile global markets where speed, innovation, and adaptability mattered more than size or legacy. Looking inward while looking outward. Even as Ratan led the Tata Group onto the global stage, he never lost sight of its roots in nation-building and social impact. Through Tata Trusts, which control over 66% of Tata Sons' equity, he continued to channel profits toward education, healthcare, rural development, and arts. The revenue from Tetley, Chorus, and JLR helped expand the group's philanthropic reach across India. This unique structure a for-profit group majority owned by charitable trusts, remained central to Ratan's identity and vision. It allowed the Tata Group to scale without losing soul. Legacy of transformation. By the time Ratan Tata retired as chairman in December 2012, he had increased the group's revenues more than 12-fold, from $5.7 billion 1992 to over $100 billion 2011-12. Globalized the group's footprint with 65% of revenue coming from outside India. Created global icons under Indian ownership. Fostered a new generation of professional leaders. Built a blueprint for ethical, inclusive, and ambitious capitalism. Ratan Tata didn't just manage the group, he reimagined it. From consolidation and strategic clarity to bold international moves, and clarity to bold international moves and cultural renewal, his tenure was not evolutionary, it was revolutionary. The Tata Nano story, the inspiration behind the world's cheapest car, engineering challenges and innovations, public reception, commercial challenges, and legacy. A promise made on a rainy day. The story of the Tata Nano began not in a boardroom, but on a rainy street in India. One day, Ratan Tata witnessed a family of four precariously riding a scooter. Father steering, a child wedged between him and the handlebar, mother holding another child on the pillion seat, all struggling to stay balanced. It was an image of India's middle-class vulnerability, of dreams caught between aspirations and affordability. It deeply moved him. That scene planted a seed in his mind. What if we could create a safe, affordable car for the Indian family? This wasn't about profits. It was about dignity, accessibility, and empowerment. A democratization of personal mobility in a country where two-wheelers dominated the roads. Ratan Tata made a promise. He would build a car for 1 lakh rupees, roughly $2,500 at the time, making it the world's cheapest car. Most dismissed it as a marketing gimmick or an engineering fantasy, but Ratan was dead serious. From dream to design table, the challenge of 1 lakh rupees. To bring the Nano to life, Ratan Tata didn't approach it as a typical cost-cutting project. He approached it as a blank slate innovation challenge. Instead of modifying an existing car, Tata Motors began designing the Nano from scratch. Every component, every function, every production process was reevaluated through a single lens. How can this be made more efficient without compromising safety and basic comfort? Key design principles included frugal engineering, designing to deliver maximum utility with minimum cost. Lightweight materials, reducing weight to enhance fuel efficiency and lower production cost. Simplified features. No P, a promise is a promise. The Tata Nano was finally unveiled, priced at 1 lakh rupees, $2,500, just as promised. The reaction was electric. The car became a global sensation overnight. Media outlets across the world covered it. Time, People's Car, 2,500 Tata Nano. BBC, Tata unveils world's cheapest car. The Economist, India's Detroit moment? Industry leaders marveled at the frugal engineering. Environmentalists saw potential in a low-emission car. Policy thinkers hailed it as a breakthrough for developing nation struggle begins. However, the journey from admiration to adoption didn't go as planned. The first major setback was production-related. The Nano's factory was to be located in Singer, West Bengal, but the project ran into massive political resistance over land acquisition. Protests erupted, led by local farmers and opposition parties. The issue escalated into a statewide controversy, eventually forcing Tata Motors to pull out. Ratan Tata was visibly hurt. "If someone doesn't want us, we don't want to be there," he said. The relocation of the plant to Sanand, Gujarat was swift and commendable, but it delayed production by nearly 2 years and increased costs substantially. The relocation also disrupted the momentum created by the car's dramatic unveiling. By the time the Nano finally hit the roads in 2009, the excitement had begun to fade. Worse, a series of early safety incidents, including cases of the Nano catching fire, triggered fears about reliability. even though thorough investigations revealed the incidents were isolated and not due to design flaws. Perception versus positioning, a marketing misfire. Perhaps the most critical blow to the Nano's commercial success came not from engineering failures, but from marketing and perception. The Nano had been positioned as the world's cheapest car. While that tagline was a point of pride for engineers and economists, it backfired in the eyes of consumers. In India's aspirational middle class, buying a car is not merely a utility-driven decision, it is a status symbol. The Nano's image as a cheap car made it unappealing for many who could afford slightly better options. People didn't want to be seen in a car that advertised their limited means. The very affordability that was its strength became a stigma. Marketing attempts to reposition the Nano as a cool, youthful urban car came too late. Variants with air conditioning, music systems, and dual colors were introduced, but the first impression had stuck. Engineering triumph, commercial tragedy. Despite all its commercial challenges, the Nano remained an engineering marvel. It demonstrated that it was possible to build a functional, safe, fuel-efficient car for less than 1 lakh rupees. It showcased the power of frugal innovation and inspired similar attempts in emerging markets. From an engineering perspective, the Nano team achieved what many thought impossible. Mileage of up to 25 kilometers per liter, compact yet spacious design, lightweight build with adequate structural integrity. Globally, automakers studied the Nano's production process, cost-saving measures, and supply chain management. Ironically, while the car failed in sales, it succeeded as a case study in innovation. Harvard Business School, MIT, and Stanford analyzed it in detail. It was taught in MBA programs and lauded in design summits. The Nano even inspired other Tata companies to embrace frugal innovation in their own fields. Ratan Tata's personal investment. For Ratan Tata, the Nano was never just a product, it was a personal mission. He had invested not only resources but also his reputation, time, and passion into the project. Even after retirement, he continued to defend the Nano. He acknowledged the missteps but never regretted the intent. In interviews, he often said, "We tried to do something that hadn't been done before. If we had succeeded, it would have changed the world of transportation." His emotional attachment to the car was evident. He didn't measure its success purely in sales, but in impact and imagination. The idea that innovation could be inclusive and business could be a tool for social good. The end of the road, production halt and reflections. By the mid-2010s, it was clear that the Nano wasn't gaining traction. Tata Motors began scaling down production, and by 2018, the company announced that the Nano would be phased out due to poor demand and tightening emission regulations. It was a quiet end to a loud dream. Yet in retrospect, the Nano left behind a legacy far more complex than numbers could convey. It represented the ambition of India Inc. to innovate for the masses, the limits of price-driven positioning in aspirational societies, the vulnerability of innovation in the face of politics and perception. It also showcased Ratan Tata's willingness to take risks for the greater good, even at the cost of temporary failure. Legacy of the Nano. More than a car. In the final analysis, the Tata Nano was not a failure. It was a bold, beautiful, imperfect attempt to do something revolutionary. Its real contributions include putting Indian frugal engineering on the world map, encouraging local manufacturers to think about affordable innovation, challenging the narrative that good things must be expensive, igniting the imagination of designers, engineers, and policymakers. Ratan Tata's leadership throughout the Nano journey remains one of the most admired episodes in Indian business history. His resilience in the face of criticism, his refusal to abandon the project, and his grace in accepting its commercial fate have only enhanced his legacy. The Nano wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of intention, ingenuity, and integrity. In its tiny frame, it carried the weight of one man's dream for a more inclusive India, and the courage to chase it even when the road ahead was uncharted. 7. Philanthropy and values. Tata trusts in his deep belief in giving back views on nation-building, ethics, and responsible capitalism. contributions to education, healthcare, and rural development. The legacy of giving, Tata Trusts. At the heart of Ratan, Tata's life and leadership is a deeply rooted commitment to philanthropy and nation building. It was not just about growing a business empire, it was about ensuring that the benefits of that growth were shared widely across society. This philosophy is best embodied in Tata Trusts, one of the oldest and most respected philanthropic organizations in India. Established by Jamsetji Tata in the late 19th century, the trusts are a testament to the Tata family's long tradition of giving back to the community. Ratan Tata, as the chairman of Tata Sons, has upheld and expanded this legacy. The Tata Trusts control around 66% of the equity in Tata Sons, and their annual revenue exceeds billions of dollars. However, their focus is not on accumulating wealth. It is on creating sustainable, positive change across the nation. Under Ratan's leadership, these trusts have been instrumental in funding and shaping a wide range of social initiatives, from healthcare to education, rural development to disaster relief. But Ratan's involvement goes beyond simply directing funds. He sees philanthropy not as an obligation, but as a moral responsibility of individuals and businesses alike. His personal belief is that wealth is a tool, not for personal aggrandizement, but for transforming society. This vision has driven much of his involvement in initiatives that benefit the most underserved sections of India. Giving back to India. Ratan Tata's philosophy of philanthropy. Ratan Tata has always believed that business leaders have a duty to contribute to the greater good of society. This sentiment is deeply embedded in the Tata Group's values, particularly the belief that business and philanthropy should work hand in hand, rather than be seen as mutually exclusive. From the start of his career, Ratan was taught that the wealth and influence generated by the Tata Group were not solely for enriching individuals, but for improving the lives of the Indian people. He has consistently stressed that businesses must focus not only on profit-making, but on the social impact of their activities. In Ratan's words, it is not enough for businesses to simply pursue profits. They must also seek to better the communities in which they operate, create jobs, and improve the standard of living. He has often emphasized the ethical responsibility of business leaders to guide society toward a more equitable future. This view resonates with his role as the chairman of Tata Trusts, where he has led efforts in various fields such as healthcare, education, and rural development. Ratan's philanthropic work is deeply human-centered. He often speaks about the importance of creating opportunities for those who are less fortunate and giving them the tools to improve their lives. This vision is embedded in many of the group's initiatives, which are designed not just to alleviate poverty, but to empower individuals to build better futures for themselves. Nation building through education. The Tata Education Fund. A central pillar of Ratan Tata's philanthropic legacy is his commitment to education. He has long been an advocate of using education as a tool for nation building. According to Ratan, the greatest contribution one can make to society is by ensuring that the youth have access to quality education, regardless of their socioeconomic background. In 2008, Tata Group, under Ratan's leadership, established the Tata Education and Development Trust. One of the most notable outcomes of this initiative was the Tata Scholarship Program at Cornell University, one of the Ivy League universities in the United States. The Scholarship Fund, set up in 2000, has made higher education at Cornell accessible to hundreds of Indian students who otherwise would not have been able to afford it. Ratan Tata himself, a graduate of Cornell, has often mentioned how he was inspired to give back to his alma mater and other educational institutions. In his view, education is the key to unlocking potential, and for him, empowering students means empowering the country. Additionally, under his guidance, Tata Trusts has supported numerous initiatives aimed at improving primary and secondary education in rural and underserved regions of India. The trusts have invested in programs that improve literacy rates, establish schools and train teachers, particularly in remote areas where access to quality education is scarce. Ratan's vision is clear. Quality education should not be a privilege but a right. It's the foundation of social mobility and a means to create a more equitable society. Healthcare, accessible and affordable for all. Another area where Ratan Tata has made significant contributions is in healthcare. As the leader of Tata Trusts, he has prioritized affordable healthcare and medical research. The Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai, established by Tata Trusts in 1941, is one of the leading cancer treatment centers in India and has treated millions of patients over the years. Ratan Tata has always maintained that healthcare should be accessible to all, irrespective of income. Under his leadership, the Tata Trusts have funded various projects aimed at providing affordable treatment and medical infrastructure to those in need. For example, Ratan has been instrumental in promoting the development of affordable drugs for diseases such as cancer, HIV/AIDS, and tuberculosis. Tata Trust has partnered with leading hospitals, universities, and organizations to conduct research that makes life-saving medications more affordable for the Indian population. Furthermore, Tata Trust has played a key role in healthcare outreach to the rural population, focusing on preventive care, maternal health, and nutrition. The trusts also support health initiatives that target child malnutrition and mental health, two areas of growing concern in India. Rural development, empowering communities. Ratan Tata's philanthropy is not limited to urban areas. He has consistently supported initiatives aimed at uplifting rural communities. A significant proportion of India's population still lives in villages where access to basic amenities like clean water, sanitation, and healthcare remains a challenge. The Tata Rural Development Program, TRDP, which was launched in the 1970s, has been a key project in transforming rural India. The initiative focuses on improving agriculture, water supply, sanitation, and livelihood opportunities for rural populations. Under Ratan Tata's leadership, Tata Trust has also funded programs that provide microfinancing and entrepreneurship training to rural women, helping them build sustainable businesses and achieve financial independence. Moreover, the Trust's focus on rural education and digital literacy has empowered thousands of individuals in remote areas with the knowledge and skills necessary for a better life. The ethics of responsible capitalism. Ratan Tata's views on business ethics have been a defining feature of his leadership. He has always been a staunch advocate of responsible capitalism, the idea that companies should pursue profits in a way that benefits society rather than exploiting resources for individual gain. For him, corporate responsibility is more than just a legal obligation. It is a moral one. In his speeches and interviews, Ratan has often articulated the idea that businesses are not just economic entities, but social institutions with an obligation to serve the greater good. He believes that the purpose of business is not just to maximize profit, but to create long-term value for customers, employees, communities, and shareholders. This philosophy was reflected in the values of the Tata Group, which consistently prioritized ethical practices, transparency, and sustainability. For instance, during his tenure, Tata Group was one of the few companies to maintain a zero-tolerance policy towards corruption, even when it meant losing lucrative contracts or facing difficult decisions. Ratan Tata has also been a vocal critic of the corruption and crony capitalism that has plagued some sectors of the Indian business world. He has called for a shift toward a more ethical, transparent, and inclusive model of capitalism. The enduring legacy of giving, Ratan Tata's approach to philanthropy, is not just about writing checks or supporting causes. It is about creating systemic change. The impact of his philanthropic work is deeply embedded in Indian society, from the villages that have been transformed by rural development programs to the students whose lives have been changed by scholarships and educational initiatives. His personal involvement, his dedication to social causes, and his ability to align the interests of business and philanthropy have made him a role model for corporate leaders around the world. Ratan Tata's legacy is not just about the Tata Group's growth or the products it created. It is about a man who used his wealth and influence to elevate millions of others, leaving a lasting imprint on the values of responsible leadership. 8. Leadership style and personal philosophy. A leader who led by example, humility, and integrity. Ratan Tata's leadership is often described in terms of humility and integrity, qualities that set him apart in the often cutthroat world of corporate India. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Ratan's leadership was not defined by outward displays of power or dominance, but by a quiet, unassuming manner that commanded respect and admiration. From the moment Ratan Tata took the helm of the Tata Group in 1991, he set the tone for a leadership style rooted in personal values. Those who have worked closely with him note that his approach was never about asserting control. Instead, it was about inspiring others to rise to the occasion. His style was a reflection of the Tata legacy, a commitment to integrity, ethics, and responsibility. Ratan Tata did not believe in seeking personal recognition or accolades. For him, success was about the collective achievements of his team rather than individual glory. His leadership was an embodiment of the notion that a true leader's value lies in uplifting others, not in elevating themselves. Foresight and innovation. A visionary leader. One of Ratan Tata's most celebrated qualities is his visionary foresight. While many leaders focus on the short term, Ratan always kept his eyes on the future, seeking opportunities for long-term growth and sustainability. Under his leadership, the Tata Group expanded and diversified in ways that were ahead of their time. Whether it was Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, becoming a global IT powerhouse, the acquisitions of Tetley, Chorus, and Jaguar Land Rover, or the creation of the Tata Nano, Ratan demonstrated an exceptional ability to identify opportunities that others often overlooked. He was especially known for his risk-taking ability. The acquisition of Chorus, a British steel giant, and Jaguar Land Rover, two iconic British car brands, were bold moves, especially in the context of India's relatively limited presence in the global automotive and steel industries. These decisions were not made in isolation, but reflected Ratan's long-term commitment to creating a global, diversified Tata Group that could thrive on the international stage. Moreover, Ratan Tata was not content to follow trends. He set them. He believed that companies should anticipate the future needs of their customers rather than simply responding to current demands. This is evident in his approach to Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, which under his leadership transitioned from a modest IT services company to one of the world's largest technology firms. He foresaw the transformation of India into a global IT hub, positioning TCS as a pioneer in the industry. His ability to think long-term and anticipate challenges was also visible in his personal style. For instance, when the global recession struck in 2008, Ratan Tata's strategy was not to react hastily, but to carefully analyze the situation and make calculated decisions. Rather than succumbing to panic, he led the Tata Group through the crisis, maintaining steady growth and positioning it for a future rebound. A champion of innovation and change. Ratan Tata has been a tireless advocate for innovation in all aspects of the Tata Group's operations. He is often credited with transforming the Tata Group from a family-run conglomerate to a global powerhouse. However, his emphasis on innovation wasn't limited to product development, but extended to organizational processes, leadership structure, and management practices. For Ratan, innovation meant rethinking business as usual. He was deeply invested in the idea that a company's greatest asset was not its balance sheet, but its ability to adapt to an ever-changing world. This was especially evident in his efforts to modernize the Tata Group, ensuring it could thrive in a globalized, competitive environment. One of Ratan Tata's greatest innovations was embracing technology at a time when many companies in India were still wary of it. Tata Group's success with TCS exemplified Ratan's belief in the power of technology to drive growth. But he also understood that innovation went beyond technology. For instance, the Tata Nano was an attempt to revolutionize mobility by making a car affordable for India's lower middle-class families, while redefining what it meant to be a cheap car, both in terms of price and design. Ratan Tata's willingness to embrace disruptive ideas, even when they were risky, showed his commitment to challenging the status quo and thinking outside the box. He believed that innovation was not just a competitive advantage, but an imperative for survival in the business world. Leadership during crises, calm amidst storms. No leader is tested more than when crises strike, and Ratan Tata faced his fair share of challenges during his tenure. Yet what stands out in his leadership style is his composure during times of crisis and his ability to steer the Tata Group through difficult waters without losing focus on his core values. One of the most defining moments in his leadership came in the aftermath of the 2008 terrorist attack on the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Mumbai. The hotel, owned by the Tata Group, became the site of a horrific attack that resulted in the loss of many lives. Ratan Tata's response to the crisis was nothing short of exemplary. He personally took charge, ensuring that the safety and security of the guests, employees, and stakeholders were prioritized. He also publicly reaffirmed his commitment to rebuilding the Taj and restoring its place as one of India's premier hotels. Ratan Tata's calm and compassionate response to this tragedy was a testament to his deep-rooted sense of responsibility and empathy. Rather than focusing on the financial loss, he expressed his concern for the victims and their families. His leadership during this crisis was widely admired, and the way he handled the situation earned him respect across the globe. Another significant crisis occurred during the Singer controversy involving the Tata Nano plant. Faced with intense political opposition and protests from local farmers, Ratan Tata was forced to relocate the plant from West Bengal to Gujarat. The move was a major setback, but Ratan Tata handled the situation with characteristic grace and dignity. He never pointed fingers or sought blame. Instead, he focused on finding a solution and moving forward. His decision to shift the nano factory to Gujarat was pragmatic, but he made it clear that political interference should never compromise business interests or hinder progress. Through both crises, Ratan Tata demonstrated an important leadership trait: the ability to remain calm, make tough decisions, and hold on to core values in the face of adversity. He displayed an unwavering belief in principles, regardless of the financial or emotional cost. Inspiring loyalty and respect. One of Ratan Tata's most remarkable leadership traits was his ability to inspire loyalty and respect in his employees. Tata Group is renowned for its employee-centric culture, and much of this can be attributed to Ratan's leadership. His personal humility, sense of fairness, and focus on employee welfare fostered a deep sense of loyalty within the organization. Ratan Tata was known for taking a personal interest in the well-being of his employees. Whether it was visiting different Tata Group factories, engaging with employees at all levels of the organization, or making sure that employee concerns were heard, he built a sense of community within the group. He was not a distant, top-down leader, but an approachable figure who genuinely cared about the people he led. Additionally, Ratan Tata's leadership in ethics and values played a critical role in gaining the trust of employees and stakeholders alike. In a corporate world where shortcuts and unethical practices often find a way to the top, Ratan Tata's emphasis on honesty, integrity, and fairness was a guiding principle. His zero-tolerance approach to corruption and commitment to transparency ensured that Tata Group remained a highly respected name across industries. Ratan's leadership also inspired respect through his decision-making process. He was known for his thoughtful approach, often consulting with experts and listening to multiple perspectives before making a final decision. This level of inclusiveness and respect for others' opinions created a culture of trust within the organization. His ability to foster loyalty was not just about charisma or personal charm, it was about walking the talk and ensuring that his actions aligned with his words. By prioritizing people over profits, maintaining a high level of ethical conduct, and leading with empathy, Ratan Tata created an environment where employees felt valued, respected, and deeply connected to the company's mission. Ratan Tata's enduring leadership legacy. Ratan Tata's leadership is a reflection of the values he upheld throughout his life: humility, integrity, foresight, and innovation. His ability to remain grounded in the face of success, handle crises with composure, and inspire loyalty in his team is a testament to the strength of his character and his leadership philosophy. His leadership transcended the usual metrics of power and control. For Ratan Tata, leadership was not just about achieving business success. It was about creating a sustainable, values-driven organization that had a positive impact on society. His legacy is one of responsible leadership, where the interests of people, communities, and the nation are just as important as the bottom line. Ratan Tata's influence will continue to be felt in the Tata Group and beyond, as his philosophy of leadership shapes future generations of business leaders. 9. Global Vision and Legacy. Putting India Inc. on the global map, impact on Indian entrepreneurship and global perceptions. His role in reshaping business ethics and practices. Putting India Inc. on the global map. Ratan Tata's tenure as the chairman of Tata Group is inextricably linked to the globalization of India Inc. Under his leadership, Tata Group transformed from a national conglomerate to one of the most respected global business entities. Tata's remarkable vision not only expanded the group's footprint across the world, but also positioned Indian businesses on the global stage in a way that had never been done before. The most significant testament to his global vision was the acquisition of Chorus Steel in 2007, a move that made Tata Steel one of the world's largest steel producers. This was the first time an Indian company had acquired a major Western firm of such size, sending a clear signal to the world about the growing power and ambition of Indian companies. Tata's willingness to make this bold move, despite the uncertainty of the global financial markets, marked a turning point in Indian business history. Following Chorus, Tata's acquisition of Jaguar Land Rover, JLR, in 2008 cemented Tata Group's position as a global player. With these moves, Ratan Tata demonstrated not just business acumen, but also the confidence to take on Western giants in their own backyard. The global expansion of Tata Group was not limited to these two major acquisitions. Under his leadership, Tata diversified into various sectors, from automotive to technology, chemicals, telecommunications, and hospitality. Tata's global strategy was not just about acquiring foreign companies. It was also about leveraging the power of the Indian market to create products and services that could compete internationally. One of the most striking examples of this vision was the Tata Nano, an attempt to create the world's most affordable car. While the Nano's commercial success was mixed, it showcased Ratan Tata's deep understanding of the global demand for innovation, particularly in emerging markets like India. Ratan Tata's leadership shifted global perceptions of Indian business, showing that Indian companies were capable of competing with Western multinational giants on the world stage. He was instrumental in making Indian corporate leadership more visible and respected, establishing a benchmark for other Indian entrepreneurs to follow. Impact on Indian entrepreneurship and global perceptions. Ratan Tata's legacy extends far beyond the expansion of Tata Group. His efforts also had a profound impact on Indian entrepreneurship and the global perception of Indian business leaders. Prior to Ratan Tata's time, Indian businesses were often seen as operating within the confines of a protected domestic market, with little international recognition. Under his leadership, the Tata Group's success became a symbol of the capability and ambition of Indian businesses. Tata's approach to business was rooted in a global mindset, and this translated into a leadership style that blended Indian values with international best practices. Ratan Tata's global vision was not merely about growing the businesses of the Tata Group. It was about inspiring Indian entrepreneurs to think beyond the local market and embrace a global perspective. By successfully negotiating major international deals, he sent a message that Indian entrepreneurs had the capability and vision to succeed globally. The acquisition of Tetley Tea, a well-known British brand, and the aforementioned acquisitions of Chorus and JLR were instrumental in changing the international business community's view of Indian companies as merely cost-effective producers to companies that could lead in quality, innovation, and leadership. His leadership style and approach to business ethics became models for younger generations of Indian entrepreneurs. Tata's deep commitment to transparency, ethical business practices, and corporate social responsibility became a standard that young business leaders sought to emulate. He proved that it was possible to be both profitable and ethical, something that was especially resonant in an era marked by growing concerns about corporate governance and ethical leadership in business. Ratan Tata's influence extends beyond Tata Group's reach. He inspired countless Indian entrepreneurs to build companies that were not just successful in India, but capable of competing globally. His commitment to innovation, his willingness to take risks, and his focus on sustainability provided a blueprint for the next generation of leaders, reshaping business ethics and practices. One of Ratan Tata's most significant contributions to the business world is his role in reshaping business ethics and practices. During his tenure, Tata Group became a symbol of responsible capitalism. Ratan Tata's leadership was characterized by an unwavering commitment to integrity, fairness, and transparency, values that were deeply ingrained in the culture of the Tata Group and extended to the wider Indian business community. In a business world often criticized for prioritizing profits over people, Ratan Tata stood out for his ethical decision-making and his insistence that success should not come at the expense of human dignity or environmental sustainability. One of the most prominent examples of his commitment to business ethics was his zero-tolerance policy towards corruption. Tata was widely admired for his principled stance, even when it meant making unpopular decisions or walking away from lucrative opportunities that did not align with his values. In an era where corporate social responsibility, CSR, was becoming a buzzword, Ratan Tata was already leading by example. Under his leadership, Tata Group made significant investments in education, healthcare, and rural development, using its profits to fund initiatives that benefited society as a whole. This approach was a sharp departure from the profit-maximizing behavior that characterized many multinational companies at the time. Ratan Tata also worked to transform the business environment in India itself. He advocated for the development of a level playing field, where companies could compete based on their merits rather than through political connections. He was a strong proponent of free market principles, but with a commitment to ethical business practices that prioritize the welfare of society as a whole. This focus on corporate governance was one of the key reasons why Tata Group's reputation remained unblemished, even as the company expanded globally. He was also instrumental in the push for sustainability within the business world. During his tenure, Tata Group adopted various green initiatives and worked towards reducing the environmental impact of its operations. His belief in sustainability was not just about adhering to global standards, but about doing the right thing by future generations. His leadership influenced the broader Indian business community to adopt eco-friendly practices and become more environmentally responsible. One of the key principles that Ratan Tata upheld was the idea that businesses should not only maximize shareholder value, but should also have a positive impact on employees, customers, and the wider community. His leadership was rooted in the belief that business should be conducted with a strong sense of purpose, and that success should be measured not just by profits, but by the contribution to society. This commitment to responsible capitalism has continued to inspire Indian business leaders long after Ratan Tata's retirement. His work has played a significant role in shaping the global perceptions of Indian businesses, showing the world that Indian entrepreneurship can be both innovative and ethical. The enduring global legacy of Ratan Tata's legacy is not just defined by the remarkable growth of Tata Group, but also by his impact on Indian entrepreneurship and his role in shaping business ethics worldwide. His leadership has proven that Indian businesses are capable of achieving global success while adhering to strong ethical principles. He changed the way the world viewed India Inc., and his success has opened doors for many Indian entrepreneurs to pursue international ventures with the same sense of confidence and integrity. Today, Ratan Tata is regarded not just as one of India's most influential business figures, but as a global icon of leadership, demonstrating that business success and ethical practices can go hand in hand. As the business world continues to evolve, Ratan Tata's approach to leadership, his focus on sustainability, and his belief in corporate responsibility will remain central to the future of Indian business and global corporate practices. 10th, retirement, reflection, and continued influence. Stepping down and succession planning. Return to advisory roles in startup investments. Public persona post-retirement and continued influence, stepping down and succession planning. In 2012, Ratan Tata made the momentous decision to step down as the chairman of Tata Group after leading the conglomerate for over 2 decades. This decision marked the end of an era for the Tata Group and initiated a new chapter in its history. But Ratan Tata's departure wasn't simply a retirement from active leadership. It was the culmination of years of careful succession planning, ensuring the continuation of the Tata legacy. Ratan Tata understood the importance of succession planning, and from the early 2000s, he worked tirelessly to ensure that the leadership of Tata Group would be in capable hands once he decided to step down. The process culminated in the selection of Cyrus Mistry, a scion of a prominent Parsi business family, as his successor in 2012. While the transition was initially met with optimism, it was also accompanied by considerable pressure to maintain the Tata Group's established values, ethics, and global stature. However, the succession was not without challenges. In 2016, Ratan Tata found himself once again at the center of the group's leadership, this time stepping in as interim chairman after the sudden ousting of Cyrus Mistry. His return highlighted the immense trust the group had in Tata's leadership and the continuity of values that Ratan Tata had instilled over the years. This rare return demonstrated not just Tata's deep-rooted connection to the organization, but also his unwavering commitment to the Tata family's values of integrity, social responsibility, and long-term vision. The episode of Succession, with its highs and lows, showcased Ratan Tata's foresight and the complexity of leadership transitions. Despite the challenges, his careful planning ensured that the group could weather leadership changes without losing its core principles. Tata's ability to step in during a turbulent period reinforced the importance of stability and principle-based leadership in a world increasingly driven by volatility. Return to advisory roles in startup investments. After stepping down as chairman of Tata Group, Ratan Tata transitioned into a more advisory role, focusing on mentoring and investing in startups. His post-retirement activities marked a new phase in his professional life, one where he could focus on helping young entrepreneurs and supporting innovative ideas in the technology and startup sectors. Tata's entry into the startup ecosystem was widely anticipated given his history of forward-thinking innovation and his knack for spotting promising ventures. He became an angel investor in several startups, particularly in the fields of technology, e-commerce, and sustainability. His involvement in the startup community not only brought credibility to these young companies, but also allowed him to mentor entrepreneurs who shared his values of ethics and social responsibility. Some of the high-profile investments made by Ratan Tata include Airbnb, Snapdeal, and Ola Cabs. His investments were often motivated not just by potential financial returns, but by the opportunity to support disruptive ideas that had the potential to reshape industries and positively impact society. His investments, particularly in the tech space, underscored his belief in innovation and his desire to contribute to India's growth as a global technology hub. Tata's involvement in startups also reflected his broader vision for the future of Indian entrepreneurship, a vision in which innovation, ethics, and sustainability play a central role in the business landscape. He worked with many young entrepreneurs to ensure they understood that success should not come at the expense of social responsibility. His guidance emphasized the importance of creating value for society alongside achieving financial success. Public persona post-retirement and continued influence. Even after his retirement, Ratan Tata has remained one of India's most respected and influential figures. His public persona continues to be defined by his integrity, humility, and commitment to social good. Tata's transition to public life post-retirement has been marked by his active participation in philanthropy and his frequent interventions on matters of national importance. He has been a vocal advocate for corporate governance, sustainable business practices, and ethical leadership. Tata's speeches and public appearances continue to carry weight, especially when it comes to issues concerning India's future. Whether discussing the importance of innovation, education, or the need for inclusive growth, Ratan Tata has used his voice and platform to inspire young leaders and entrepreneurs across India and the world. His continued influence is also reflected in his work with Tata Trusts, the philanthropic arm of the Tata Group. Under his guidance, the trusts have focused on several key areas, including education, healthcare, rural development, and community empowerment. Even after stepping down from the leadership of the Tata Group, Ratan Tata remained deeply involved with the Tata family's legacy of philanthropy, ensuring that the work of the trusts continued to uplift the underprivileged and address social challenges. In addition to his philanthropic efforts, Tata has continued to play a role in global affairs, offering his perspective on issues ranging from economic policy to corporate governance. His status as a global leader has allowed him to offer advice and insights to international organizations, and his opinions are often sought by policymakers, industry leaders, and the media. Ratan Tata has also become a prominent figure on social media, particularly on Twitter, where his occasional posts on various topics are met with widespread admiration. His candid and thoughtful posts reflect his personality, a man of action who believes in making a positive impact. His social media presence has helped him connect with the younger generation, enabling him to pass on his wisdom and values to an entirely new audience. Even in retirement, Ratan Tata's influence on the business world remains unparalleled. He has become a guiding figure not only for Tata Group, but for Indian businesses and entrepreneurs at large. His contributions to business ethics, entrepreneurship, and philanthropy continue to resonate in India and beyond, ensuring that his legacy as one of the most respected business leaders of his time endures for years to come. Legacy, a global icon of ethical leadership, Ratan Tata's retirement did not mark the end of his influence. Instead, it ushered in a new phase of engagement that continues to shape the world. His post-retirement endeavors in advisory roles, startup investments, and philanthropy have ensured that his legacy remains alive and active. As a businessman, Ratan Tata not only built one of India's most respected conglomerates, but also raised the profile of Indian business on the world stages. His leadership, characterized by vision, integrity, and social responsibility, continues to set a standard for the next generation of entrepreneurs. In the decades to come, his legacy will undoubtedly remain a guiding light for leaders who seek to combine business success with social impact. 11th, conclusion, summary of key contributions and lasting impact. Ratan Tata's journey through the corporate world is a tale of vision, integrity, and unwavering commitment to the values that define the Tata Group. From his humble beginnings as a young leader taking over the reins of an iconic legacy, to his role in transforming Tata Group into a global powerhouse, Ratan Tata has made contributions that have resonated far beyond the business world. One of Tata's most profound contributions was his ability to modernize the Tata Group while retaining its deep-rooted values of ethics, social responsibility, and integrity. His leadership was marked by a focus on innovation, global expansion, and transformational acquisitions, such as Chorus, Jaguar Land Rover, and Tetley Tea. Under his guidance, Tata Group not only expanded its reach across continents, but also demonstrated that Indian companies could compete globally with the world's leading multinationals. Tata's commitment to philanthropy has been just as significant as his business acumen. He is widely respected for his belief in responsible capitalism, where businesses have a responsibility to benefit society while pursuing financial success. His work with Tata Trusts, focused on education, healthcare, rural development, and community empowerment, has had a profound social impact. Tata's belief that business should serve a higher purpose became a defining feature of his leadership style, creating a lasting legacy that will continue to inspire future generations of business leaders. Another critical contribution of Ratan Tata was his ability to navigate the complex world of corporate governance. He led by example, placing great emphasis on transparency, ethical decision-making, and fairness. Tata's focus on corporate social responsibility, CSR, set a benchmark for other Indian businesses to follow, and his leadership remains a beacon for how businesses can operate sustainably while remaining profitable. Perhaps one of his most remarkable achievements was his visionary leadership in the development of the Tata Nano, which sought to democratize car ownership by creating the world's most affordable vehicle. While the Nano's commercial success may have fallen short of expectations, the project encapsulated Tata's entrepreneurial spirit and desire to challenge the status quo. How the book encapsulates his legacy. Thomas Mathew's biography of Ratan Tata is a profound reflection of a leader's journey, one that goes beyond the corporate world and explores the personal principles, values, and philosophy that shaped Tata's decisions throughout his career. The author does an exemplary job of encapsulating Tata's complex and multidimensional legacy, providing readers with a comprehensive understanding of both his personal and professional life. Mathew frames Tata's legacy not as a mere tale of corporate triumph, but as a narrative of integrity, humility, and responsibility. Through a detailed exploration of Tata's early life, business decisions, and philanthropic contributions, The book presents a clear picture of a man who understood the importance of balancing profit with purpose. The book not only chronicles Tata's rise as a corporate giant, but also delves into his personal philosophies, which place great emphasis on social good. One of the book's greatest strengths is its ability to highlight Ratan Tata's leadership style, which was marked by visionary thinking and a deep commitment to human values. Mathew explores how Tata navigated difficult decisions and challenges, offering insights into the calmness and foresight with which he handled crises, including his handling of Tata Group's acquisitions and leadership transitions. The book is also a testament to Tata's humility. It is often said that great leaders do not seek recognition or glory, they let their actions speak for themselves. Mathew captures this essence, depicting Tata as a man who preferred to let his work define him rather than seeking the limelight. Despite being one of the most powerful men in India, Tata remained grounded, never losing sight of his commitment to the values of his family and the Tata legacy. Furthermore, the biography offers an insightful exploration of Tata's personal struggles, particularly his challenges with succession planning and his occasional bouts of self-doubt, making him appear not as a flawless figure, but as a real human being. This approach adds depth and relatability to Tata's character, elevating him from an iconic figure to a role model for aspiring leaders. Through a thorough analysis of his business decisions, leadership journey, and personal values, the book effectively encapsulates the lasting impact of Ratan Tata's leadership and his enduring influence on the global business landscape. Final reflections by the author and broader takeaways. In the final chapters of the book, Thomas Mathew offers his reflections on Ratan Tata's legacy, focusing on the lasting influence the business magnate has had on both the Tata Group and the broader business world. The author emphasizes that Ratan Tata's leadership is defined not by financial success alone, but by the values and principles that guided his decisions. A critical takeaway from the biography is the idea that business leadership is about more than just profit. Tata's belief in responsible capitalism underscores the notion that business leaders must not only create value for their shareholders, but must also be responsible stewards of the societies they operate in. His leadership style was not just about executing a strategy, but about leading with purpose, always keeping the well-being of his employees, customers, and communities at the forefront. In conclusion, the book leaves readers with a profound sense of admiration for Ratan Tata, not just as a businessman, but as a global icon of ethical leadership. His legacy is one of inspiration, integrity, and impact, and his story serves as a guiding light for entrepreneurs and leaders worldwide.